the Kamak Hill battle. So, be attentive here. He couldn't move neither legs nor arms, totally. So he rolled into the midst of the enemy with a hand grenade in his mouth and wiped them out, shouting, "My arms and legs were broken." Imagine, shouting, but with a... "My arms and legs are broken, but on the contrary, my spirit, retaliatory spirit against you imperialist scoundrels is now 1,000 times stronger. I will show the unbending fighting will of a member of the Workers' Party of Korea and unflinching will firmly pledge to the party and our beloved leader Kim Il-sung." Now, okay, it's easy to make fun of this. It's non-realistic. The guy, first, how could he put the bomb roll and make this long official proclamation and so on and so on? However, what if we are reading this in a wrong way? What if the mistake here is the same as that of the anthropologists who impute to so-called primitive aboriginals who celebrate some animal as their ancestor, the belief that they are really descended from that animal? My proposal is, why not read this passage, the scene that I described, which effectively sounds operatic, like a scene from the opera in its ridiculous, pathetic character. Why not read it in a way similar to listening to, for example, Act 3 of Richard Wagner's opera Tristan und Isolde, where, I mean, it's easy to laugh at the other, but what happens in Act 3 of Tristan is in a way more impossible and ridiculous. If you know it, Tristan is mortally wounded, and then is singing an extremely difficult aria much longer than this proclamation. It lasts about 50 minutes, no? So, okay, we all know that's not meant, but what if this scene is meant in the same way? Imagine this scene as an operatic scene, as if an aria sang. In other words, if you were to ask a North Korean guy, "But do you really think this happened?" he would probably say, "Are you stupid? Of course not. This is just meant to articulate our will to fight and blah, blah, blah." No? And so, again, belief is not, in this sense, literally a belief. This is not how it functions. And I claim, especially with so-called fundamentalists, don't make idiots of them. Another problem that I have with so-called fundamentalism is that it generated in our media, in our reaction, another great misunderstanding. I don't think that the so-called fundamentalist Islamic terror is grounded in the terrorists' conviction of their superiority and in their desire to safeguard their cultural, religious identity from the onslaught of global consumerist civilization and so on and so on. I think that now I will say something politically incorrect and very brutal, that the problem with so-called, I have problems with these designations, fundamentalist terrorists is not that we consider them inferior to us, but rather that they themselves secretly consider themselves inferior. Like, obviously, if you read Hitler's Mein Kampf, it's obvious that Hitler's problem is that he has problems with Jews. He considers himself inferior. Which is why our condescending, politically correct assurances that we feel no superiority towards them only makes them more furious and feeds their ressentiment. The problem is not cultural difference, but the opposite fact that the fundamentalists are already like us, that they secretly already internalize our standards and measure themselves by them. And this clearly goes also for example, Dalai Lama, who justifies the Tibetan Buddhism in Western terms of the pursuit of happiness, the avoidance of pain, and so on and so on. So paradoxically, I think what the fundamentalists really lack is precisely a dose of true racist conviction into their own superiority, if you want. Another thing that should be stressed here, where I think the reference to terrorism is crucial, is that we should totally abandon this opposition which is forced on us, as if, in ethics, we should oppose those who are ready to sacrifice themselves for a larger common good and utilitarians, hedonists, and so on and so on. We can learn here a lot, I think, already from the good old Rousseau, who distinguished clearly between simple egotism and the pathological amour-propre, self-love. His idea is that there is nothing bad in simple egotism, caring for yourself, for your pleasures. The result is always good, and it's even easy to generate morality out of this. The problem of evil is not hedonism, it's not I want to have a good time. As he does it in a very precise way, Rousseau, he demonstrates how the problem is when destroying the enemy, the problem is that of envy. When destroying the enemy, preventing the other to enjoy becomes for you more important than your own enjoyment. And when you get caught into the logic of better to ruin others' enjoyment than for me to enjoy. So the point is here that the logic of envy has nothing to do with hedonism and all this stuff. Which is why, now I will make a more concrete statement here, which is why I think John Rawls' theory of justice is catastrophically wrong. It works only on the assumption that people are simply egotists. It works only if you suspend envy and ressentiment. That is to say, you know probably Rawls' model of a just society where social inequalities are tolerated only insofar as they are based on natural inequalities, which are considered contingent, not marriage, and you know this Rawlsian test that you should, the veil of ignorance test. No, you should make a judgment without knowing what is your position, or to directly formulate the result, certain inequalities, some people earning more and so on, should be tolerated only if they help also the lowest, the poorest, the lowest, so that in this way you can justify it. Okay, you can earn more or whatever than others, but also the lowest one will profit from it. It sounds very reasonable. So first, we only get inequalities which are justified by helping also the poorest, the lowest in social hierarchy. And point two, these privileges of some people being richer and so on are not justified through some old hierarchies or whatever, but only in your natural capacities. How would this work in real life? I think it would have meant a total catastrophe. Why? Because imagine that you are the lowest, the poor one. You would, of course, be frustrated the others have more than you. But you would even be deprived of the right to protest, because it would be clear that you are less than the others because of your natural inabilities. And not only this, but the others are richer than you, basically in order to help you. I claim that the moment you introduce envy, the logic of envy, it explodes. It's a formula for disaster. In other words, I think that, I don't know, probably you have the same stories, but the logic of desire, which is the logic of envy, is totally ignored here. Like, there is an anecdote in my own country, in Slovenia, about a farmer, a peasant, who is given a choice by a good witch or a magician. He will, the god, whatever, all-powerful person, will give him, the peasant, 1 cow and to his neighbor 2 cows. Or take from him 1 cow and from his neighbor he will take 2 cows. Of course, the peasant immediately chooses the second option. Or, in Slovenia we have even a more morbid version. The witch or the magician tells the farmer, I will do to you whatever you want, but I warn you, I will do it twice to your neighbor. You know what's immediately the farmer's response? Take one of my eyes. So then you will take both the neighbor, and so on and so on. What's the lesson of this? Now, don't misunderstand me. I hate Friedrich Hayek. But here he was right, where he emphasized how it is much easier to accept inequalities if one can claim that they result from an impersonal blind force. So, Hayek claims, the good thing about irrationality of the market success or failure in capitalism, you know, this idea that it's not really you are intelligent, whatever. There is always an element of contingency, of chance, who fails, who succeeds on the market, is that it allows me precisely to perceive my failure or success as basically undeserved, contingent. So, the fact that capitalism is not just, far from being something which makes it more intolerable, is precisely what makes it palpable